Welcome to another episode of Home Sweet Home. My name is Rod McCall.
And I'm Scott Nichols.
All right, well, welcome back. John, thanks for being with us for a second episode. We had some really good conversations with our last one, but again, we didn't even scratch the surface on what I think is your greatest change or challenge or accomplishment.
Yeah.
And that is you were, and I say this because I've got two other very dear friends who also became fathers late in life. Mm-hmm. And so I mean, you hear about the Hollywood types. Oh, crying out loud. Guys, was it Al Pacino, who, Robert De Niro that had a kid, in their, mid to late 70s.
Larry King.
Okay, yeah, but those guys have so much money that they can afford to hire an au pair or nanny. Yeah. Okay, I don't think you're on the same economic level.
No, I am not.
So I want you, again, I think this is a really neat thing. And especially for, Sherry and I have talked about the possibility of having kids, especially shortly after we got together, after Erica died. But you took this, as a serious challenge. So what led you to the decision to go ahead and be a dad again in your late 40s?
Well, we talked about it the last episode. My wife, when we met, she was wanting to have children. I'd already had two children from a previous marriage. So I was all on board. I love my two oldest, and I was more than willing to have more. I love them. So it wasn't like her trying to twist my arm or like anything like that. I was on board. It did get to the point where I was like, hey, we got to hurry this up. Right. I don't want to be 80 having a kid, and she'll laugh at that. But it was never like a tough decision. We'd already talked about it when we started dating that I was on board with that. And, that was like the really first time we met somewhere and started talking. That was one of her questions. So
right. I
was like, well, she knows what she wants, and there's nothing wrong with that. And so I was open to that. And it was never a issue or anything.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this then. Has your perspective on parenting changed, helping raise Benny versus Jackson? I mean, they're both boys, but
yes, they are.
What has age allowed for you, if any, in a change to your perspective or approach?
I get accused of being too calm sometimes, my wife. But I have experience with, babies and toddlers now that's been a while. Mm-hmm. But I'll fall back on what I remember. So Jackson and Benjamin are very much alike in how they act. Benjamin is a little bit more outgoing and likes to be silly, whereas Jackson did, but he was more serious about things. But I probably I'd say in most cases, I'm more patient. Like probably 9 times out of 10, if he has a meltdown in public, I'm not going to get too caught up in that. People can make faces and whatever, like your kids don't do that, but I don't, and there are times though that I don't have patience, and my wife is very quick to remind me of that. But I feel like overall, I also realize I'm really blessed. I'm very, very lucky to be in the position that I'm in, to be able to have more children at my age and experience it again. I'll never be an empty nester, and I'm okay with that. It's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. And I'm okay with that.
Well, I'm not an empty nester either.
I am.
Yes.
And
Scott is.
I have to say,
yes,
I feel really blessed.
Yes.
Maybe as much as you do, right? But it's just a different. It's
exactly. There's nothing wong with it at all. It's the same, and it's not when it comes to those two. And but it is interesting to see the similarities little
Okay.
quirks, you know.
Yeah.
Like Benjamin is a huge Buzz Lightyear fan, and Jackson was the same way. And so there's a lot of things that'll happen that I get those memories of Jackson, you know, to infinity and beyond. You know,
Wow.
it's pretty good stuff.
Well, then
It's amazing to think how old Buzz Lightyear is.
Well,
Yeah.
I've been seeing some stuff because they've got Toy Story 5 coming out. And they showed so I guess here recently, Tom Hanks and Tim Allen were at one of these Comic-Con kind of things. And they showed a picture of them when Toy Story 1 came out. And that was 25, almost 30 years ago.
Yeah.
30.
Amazing.
It was
And
31
it's
because it was
30,
95, right?
Okay.
I know this because we watch it every day.
Okay. So,
I know because my son's 30.
Yes. Toy Story 2, I believe, was 96.
okay.
Shortly after that. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
So,
We have Disney Plus. We watch it every day.
All right. Well, very good. I can say that with Eric, we went through a lot of VHS tapes.
Yes.
And so I was happy when stuff came out on CD or on DVDs because I didn't have to keep
on
buying
demand
them.
is tough, dude.
But, well, I mean, how about this? You know, again, taking that challenge. And I think there's a lot of questions, hesitancy, I think, on both, you know, because there's a physical issue that, especially for women having children later in life. But I also question the idea of energy level because when you're in your 20s, when you're in your 30s, you can still get by on a couple hours of sleep at night because, you know, you got the cranky kid being up, you know, you got to be changing diapers and, you know, it's kind of like, man, I thought I was done with that. But so we could spend a lot of time talking about the negatives because those are easy. But I like to, instead of going negative, I like to go on something more positive. So I was wondering if you could share any of the unexpected joys or pleasures that you have discovered about being an older dad that maybe you have now that just with that.
Yeah, it was like, as far as joys, I wouldn't say, I mean, like I said, I feel like a very, very lucky person to be able to enjoy this again. So every day for me is a joy. Like this morning, he woke up, I went and got him, made him breakfast. Like that's the little things like that. And maybe it is because I'm older. And one of the things that, you know, that always kind of creeps into my mind is I know we're all here for a limited time, right?
yeah.
And so sometimes I start doing the math, you know, when he's 18, you know, I'll be 66, you know, so hopefully I get to 66 so I can see him graduate high school. And then there's like, what about college? And then there's also like, and I try not to get this far ahead, but it's like, I may not know his grandkids, or I may not know his kids, my grandkids, you know, and that's something that I kind of look at that as like, okay, we're not thinking about that. We're thinking about the right now. So like those moments of just him waking up, me going to pick him up from daycare, those are the joys because I know, and I knew it with my first two, it goes by so fast and you blink and now your son's 21. Yeah, and now your daughter's 20, you know, these 2 years with Benjamin have flown by. And so every moment I have to make sure that I don't take that for granted. You know, and even the moments with my older kids now are even more, for me, they're always important, but now they're really, really important. You know, I talk to my kids, my older ones, every day, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. That's important to me. But those are important moments. So the joys are every day. And that may sound corny to some folks, but that's my perspective, and that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great perspective because you are older this time than you were, and you can think I can think back, just you talking about that, a time when my wife and I were sitting at an 8th grade graduation, and we were going, man, for our oldest daughter, man, and you know, just 4 years, like we're going to be at another graduation, and she's going to be graduating high school, right? And now that's actually a long time ago that second thing happened. And I feel like if I look back on that time of me as a younger father, that I didn't actually appreciate those moments in the same way that you're talking about now.
No.
Now, I'm not going to go have other kids because my wife will see this and be like, no, we're not doing that. But for those that do, right? Like, I think that's a fabulous, feeling that you must have to be able to realize, oh, I need to appreciate this because, that might, even if it's something you're thinking, oh, I kind of missed that before and I can appreciate it more now. I think that's really cool.
I appreciate that. I bring it up to my wife and she gets mad because she's like, quit talking about that, about me not being around. But I also say it to my older two, and I maybe it is a little more, but I don't know. But I would tell my son and my daughter, Jackson and Julia, I say, look, I'm not going to be here at some point. You got to make sure your brothers are taken care of, that they're okay, that they're doing what they're supposed to do. Help them guide them through life if you need to. You're going to be their fallback if they need help. And they tell me to shut up. They don't want to hear it.
Well, how about, you've said that multiple times. So how do you, with that in the back of your mind, how has that changed how you live your life? I mean, as far as exercise, eating, just how you live your life.
I've definitely have focused more on what I eat. Of course, not coaching helps too. Like when I was coaching, I ate like crap, like fast food, it's late at night. You're eating at 11 o'clock at night, which no one should be eating at 11 o'clock at night. It's just not good for you. And so the junk that I would put in my body coaching, and some people are like, well, you can change all that. No, you can't. It's not the way it works.
That's something I never even considered.
Yeah, you have those coaches that bring and everybody brings their little container of their carrots and stuff like that. Like, I don't have time to do that. Like I'll just go get,
drive through.
Yeah. Whatever. But yeah, like, I've told my doctor too, like, look, let's come up with a plan on doing some stuff to help me. I'll do whatever I need to do. And, he's been receptive too, but yeah.
Now you can hit the local taco joint a lot more often.
Yeah.
On a regular schedule. So it's not 11 at night, but.
The what? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Not that I haven't given up fast food. That's just not going to happen.
Right.
But do I eat it as much as I used to? No way. Not even close. Not even close. And I think about that too, coaching in those hours, any job and it's not just coach, any job that you're putting in 50 plus hours a week is going to put a strain on your body and your mental health. That's it. That's the truth, and taking that out of my routine. You're asking about energy levels. I feel more energized than I have in the last 5 or 6 years. I get more sleep. Saturdays I'm not sleeping in. I get up early because he gets up early. There's nice. I don't really see. Now, eventually, and when I hit 66, obviously, I'm hoping I still have some energy. But, I turned 50 in August, and I don't feel 50. So
you don't look 50.
I appreciate that.
Having been 50, I would say you're better off than I was. So, yahoo. But, I'm glad you mentioned that because I was wondering, now that you've changed jobs, and when I say change jobs, you're still teaching because you've always been into teaching. Well, always, for as long as you've been coaching, you've been teaching. Yep. And so that hasn't changed, but you gave up the coaching and you're now a full-time teacher and you are both a dad to kids in their early 20s as well as kids in their earlier, because Benny's 2 and Theo is about to get here. How has that influenced how you change or manage your time, your energy, and your stress?
So to manage time, we talked about having a lot of free time. That free time is now focused on them. Like going from one part of, I'll change your diaper to, I'll give you financial advice, or, I'll make you lunch or I'll give you some gas money. It's two ends of the spectrum. But as far as like, I don't know, it's two different areas, right? But as far as like time balance, I don't really see a way to balance that. It just happens, like you just make time for it, asking, like I said, I talk to my kids every day. So I'm always, on them about something, usually it's money, which drives them crazy. And then I'm over here with the little one, trying to get him to blow his nose or something like that. It's a unique world I live in and I love it. So,
okay. Has this had, But again, you gave up coaching. You are now a dad to a 2-year-old and a soon-to-be absolute newborn.
Yep.
How has this impacted or affected your relationships with Amanda, with the older kids, with your mom, your sister, even your friends and those in your social network?
Since I've quit coaching, I don't really have that contact with the coaching fraternity anymore, just because I'm not out. I'm not going to these events or anything like that. I do have close friends that are coaches that I still talk to. Like I had a buddy reach out to me yesterday asking me, just checking in on things. So as far as that goes, there's not a lot, and it's not bothersome to me. My kiddos, my oldest ones, absolutely adore their younger brother, and they're very excited about the next younger brother. They're pretty close. They will call me to not talk to me. They just want to talk to Benjamin. So that tells you all you need to know. Like my daughter last night, she's out of town and she FaceTimed me, but I was on the phone with someone, say, hey, I'll call you back. She said, it's okay. I just wanted to see Benny. Like, you don't want to talk to me? Like, what are we doing? So she called her back. We FaceTimed and she spent most of it talking to her little brother.
Yeah.
So, but that relationship is something that I've talked to my wife about, that the 2 oldest ones and the 2 younger ones, I really want there to be a bond of some kind to where, and again, when I'm not around, that they still have that. And so that's super important to me. My relationship with my wife has always been a good one, a very strong relationship. We've always been really good at being able to talk to each other about feelings and whatnot. That was one thing that when we first started dating, we could talk to each other about anything, which was insane. I mean, like there was nothing like that we couldn't talk about. And that's just the way it is now. So I'm very fortunate. Again, I tell people all the time, I'm very lucky, and I probably don't deserve any of this, but I will take it. I have a great relationship with my wife. I have a great relationship with my older kids, and I'm fortunate enough to redo the whole having kids again. But the relationship parts, the ones that matter, are still there.
Perfect.
And that's all that, in my opinion, that's all that matters, is the ones that matter are still there. So my coaching friends that I still talk to on a regular basis, those were ones that mattered to begin with. So those that don't, they don't.
That's great.
It is. I truly, I said this before, but I truly do treasure my relationships with every person that I am in contact with. And I try to make sure that I make plenty of time, and I let them know how much I appreciate being in contact and communication with them. But I had a thought, and this one was actually worth repeating. But if you had one of your coaching friends and they reached out to you and they said, Lewis, I got a head coach position that I think would just be perfect for you, what would you say?
No. And it's weird that you asked that, because I've told my wife, probably like the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've had a few dreams where people have offered me coaching positions. And for one, there was one, like I actually went on the interview or something like that. And in mid-interview, I'm like, what am I doing? I don't want to do this. This is terrible. What am I thinking? But every dream is me turning down the job. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I don't want to do this. I really enjoy where I'm at now.
Yeah.
And the time that I have, and not to say that coaching was this awful experience. That's not what I'm saying at all. Those 20 years of coaching were fantastic for the most part. And I got to enjoy some great things. Kids, other coaches, experiences that I will cherish for the rest of my life. But like we talked about, there comes a point where the passion fades, and it's a transition period. Everybody goes through these in their life, the stages of life. And I hit that stage where it's like, okay. And I also felt like there was a higher power in the last 4 or 5 years that was trying to tell me, hey, dummy, why don't you move on to something else?
Yeah.
Because certain jobs that I was at were not necessarily enjoyable. And so, I there's no way I would. And it could be like the greatest position ever. You could offer me the head men's basketball job at Texas A&M, and I would say no.
Oh, I would say no too, but that's just me.
You know how I feel about Texas A&M. Well, let me rephrase it. The head coaching job at Kansas, and I would say no.
Oh, well, then you're just a fool.
I'll put it in perspective for you. But no, and that goes back to when I see coaching buddies, the first question out of their mouth is, do you miss it?
Right.
And no, I don't. And I'll even say, and I'm surprised how much I don't.
So I'm going to ask you to think about this a little bit, but not that you haven't been thinking about the other stuff I've asked you, but you run into another person, just somebody you don't know extremely well, but maybe somebody you're teaching with. All right. And they are where you were 5, 6, 7 years ago. Okay. Here they are. They're in their mid to late 40s themselves. They're thinking about tweaking their career. They're thinking about becoming like you, they're in a second marriage or a third marriage, and their spouse is younger. They want a child. What kind of advice would you give that person who is feeling kind of, again, stuck in park?
Yeah, I would just tell them you have to look at maybe the last few years of where you've been and what you've experienced. And, has it become like what Scott and I've talked about? Has it gone from a passion to a job? And as far as kids, man, do it. If that's what you want to do, my gosh, do it. You can't worry about where like what I do. I don't need to be doing that. Like thinking about 18 and 66, college and my 7, I don't need to be thinking about that. You do. It's human nature to think that stuff.
Sure.
Don't worry about that. Like having children is one of the most enjoyable, if not one of the most important things you can do in your life. And now it's not for everyone, which is why we have pets. Right?
Okay.
Because I have friends who will say, I will never have children, but they love their cats and they love their dogs. That's your children.
Mm-hmm. I will never have pets.
That's your children.
But I love my children.
Yeah. That's your kids. So that's fine. But we always want to have that's something that we can take care of, that we feel good about, and I think that's super important as you grow as a person. And that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah. Right.
But I think it's important. So as far as having children, yeah, if you can do it, do it. As far as changing that career change, you got to take risks. Sometimes that involves money. Completely understand that. If that's holding you back, then what's more important? Is it your joy or is it that vacation?
Sure.
Yeah, when I stopped coaching, I lost money, but man, it's that the money that I lost does not equal the time that I gained, And that's me. That's, again, there's coaches out there that do a fantastic job. This is their calling. That's what they do. But I hit a point in my career and in my life where it's time for change.
I think that's important. Like my wife and I always talk about what's important in our lives, and what's important in our lives isn't the money. It isn't the job. It isn't the position, or it is, none of those things. It isn't stuff. It's always come down to experiences. And that's the relational piece that you were talking about. Like we want to hang out with people, our own kids, other people, and have experiences where you go to a concert, you hit, you do a barbecue in the backyard, you hang out by the pool or the beach or whatever, like, just whatever that might be. Of course, for me, it's Disney all the time, but being able to do those things, that to me is the best thing. I don't want to get to the end of my life and say, wow, I had a great title and amassed a bunch of money and never had any friends.
Yep.
Right? Like,
it's like memories. You're creating memories.
Right? Like,
what's more important, money or those memories?
Right.
Mm-hmm. There's no doubt in my mind.
And I don't think it's a choice, right? Like I think that when we've made the choice to do the memories, we've always ended up with the ability and the money to do that. Mm-hmm. And so it hasn't been an issue, right? Like I've always had a roof over my head. I've always had food to eat. I'm not, having debt collectors knock my door down. Yeah. There's nothing about that stuff that's happening. And so, you put that priority out there, I think that you can rearrange the rest of your life to fit facilitating that priority.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and you don't need a lot of money to create memories, right?
No.
One of my best memories of a kid is when my mom would take me and my sister to where she worked, which was Gibson's, if you remember Gibson's.
Oh, yeah.
And she would it was a treat. We could get an icy and some popcorn. Mm-hmm. And it's
awesome.
So awesome. And on a summer day, are you kidding me? Mm-hmm. And so, that was what? All that together back then, way back then, was probably like $5, maybe $4.
For the two of you.
Yeah, for two, it was probably $5. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's good.
Now it'd be $45.
Yeah, no kidding.
With tariffs.
Yeah. Bet. Well, I think we're pushing up against our window, but John, I am so glad you came.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And shared with
Enjoyed
us. This has been, again, the whole concept of Home Sweet Home is home should be a place where you enjoy being. Right. And we've talked before about starting over. We've talked about, whatever that might be, whether it's of our own design or being pushed on us, like with divorce, and being able to, blend families, all these different things that challenge being happy at home. Mm-hmm. And one of the key things that we've talked about before is that job. And so being able to do that, but the fact that you added the one extra thing of having children late in life. And I'm seeing more people do that. People are getting married later. People are having children later. Yeah. And so I don't think it's as much of an odd thing today as it was maybe 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Right.
So I'm glad that you took that challenge. You've made that, successful. And I'm glad that the older kids are buying into the little ones, not feeling jealous or put out or feeling replaced. So outstanding. Well done.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I definitely appreciate your story. So,
thank you.
And I haven't known you as long as Rod has, but I've known a lot about your story leading up to this. So it's great to see that, you have moved from that time where you were questioning those things and then now just so happy, right? Just lit up with.
I am, man. It's crazy.
And I think that's fabulous.
Yeah. My principal at work, every time he comes by and sees me, says, "Hey, how you doing?" I'm fantastic. He goes, "You're the happiest man in America." And I said, "Yes, I am." Yes, I am.
I would agree. Every time
you have no idea.
Every time I've asked you how it's going, you're like, everything's wonderful.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you don't usually have people say that.
No.
When you ask somebody in the hallway, right, like, how you doing? Oh, I'm all right. Right. Yeah. But you're always really lit up about it. And I think that's
awesome.
I
feel like I'm pretty lucky. I mean, not many people, and like you said, there's more people doing this. Like I'm not an anomaly, but it's, for me personally, it's an absolute blessing, So.
Fantastic. Well, then we will end on a blessing.
Awesome.
So until next time, I'm Rod.
I'm Scott.
See you later.
Bye-bye.